For many people over 60, mornings quietly shrink. Breakfast becomes a cup of coffee, a piece of toast, maybe a biscuit or a little fruit. It feels light, easy, familiar. And at first, nothing terrible seems to happen. You get on with your day. But over the years, something else is happening in the background. Your legs get slower, standing up from chairs takes more effort, stairs feel steeper, and your walking distance quietly shrinks. Most people blame age, arthritis, or bad circulation. Almost no one suspects the innocent little breakfast they've been repeating for decades. Today, I want to show you a different way of looking at those first minutes of your day. Not as a small, unimportant meal you can skip or minimize, but as a daily decision that can either protect your leg muscle or slowly let it slip away. And the habit we're going to talk about is very simple: turning breakfast into your muscle meal by centering it around enough high-quality protein to wake up and protect your leg muscles after the night. Before we talk about the habit itself, let's look at what is really at stake. The muscles in your legs are not just there to look toned in shorts. They are your brakes and your engine. They are what let you stand from the toilet, get out of a car, climb stairs, catch yourself if you trip, walk across a street before the light changes, and carry a bag of groceries without feeling like you're dragging a boulder. When leg muscles shrink and weaken, your life doesn't just get a bit inconvenient. Your independence gets smaller. This slow loss of muscle has a name: sarcopenia. You don't need to memorize that word, but you do need to recognize its fingerprints. You notice it when you start using your hands to push yourself out of chairs that you used to stand up from easily. You notice it when a single flight of stairs leaves your thighs burning. You notice it when your steps get shorter and you look for railings more often. Underneath all of that is a simple fact. After about 50, your body naturally starts to lose muscle, especially in the legs, unless you give it clear reasons and materials to keep it. Most people understand the reason part. You have to use your muscles. Walking, climbing, doing some kind of strength work, even if it's chair exercises, tells your body, hey, these muscles are needed. But fewer people understand the material side. Every time you move, especially when you challenge your legs, you create micro damage inside the muscle fibers. That damage is not bad. It's the signal to repair and strengthen. The repair crew works with one main material: amino acids from protein. And the most intense repair shift happens not when you are running around, but when you are resting and sleeping. Now think about your daily rhythm. You go to bed at night, and for 7, 8, sometimes 9 hours, you don't eat. Your body keeps you alive by drawing on stored energy. By morning, your muscles have been fasting for a long time. They are hungry for building blocks. Then you wake up and, in many cases, you give them coffee, a little toast, maybe some jam, maybe a sweet cereal. Lots of sugar and starch, almost no protein. From your brain's point of view, that might feel fine. Caffeine wakes you up. From your muscles' point of view, that's a missed opportunity. You've just ended a long fast without delivering enough raw material to repair and maintain those leg fibers. This is where the simple breakfast habit comes in. The idea is not complicated. Instead of treating breakfast as a light, mostly carbohydrate snack, you build it around a substantial serving of protein, enough to actually switch on the machinery that builds and preserves muscle, especially in your legs. For most older adults, that means aiming for roughly 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at breakfast, every day or more if your body size or your doctor's advice calls for it. In practice, that looks like making sure there is a real protein star on your plate in the morning, not just a ghost of it. The reason this matters so much after 60 is something scientists call anabolic resistance. When you were 20, your muscles responded to small amounts of protein very enthusiastically. A modest meal with a little bit of chicken or yogurt was enough to flip the build switch. With age, your muscle becomes more stubborn. It doesn't react as strongly to tiny doses of protein. To get the same "yes, let's rebuild" signal, you need a more decisive serving at each meal. Think of your muscle as a worker who once jumped up when you whispered, and now needs you to speak clearly and directly. There is another detail your muscles care about hidden inside that protein, an amino acid called leucine. You don't need to remember the name, but your muscles do. Leucine is one of the key triggers that tell your muscle cells, start building. In younger adults, a relatively modest amount of leucine can do the job. In older adults, it takes more. That is why breakfasts built on foods like eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, tofu, tempeh, or a well-formulated protein shake, which are naturally richer in leucine, are so powerful. They send a loud, clear message to your leg muscles at the start of the day. Here's enough of what you need. Stay alive. Stay strong. You might be wondering, why breakfast? Can't I just eat protein later? Total daily protein is important, but timing and distribution across the day turn out to matter more than most people realize. Many older adults have a pattern that looks like this: tiny protein at breakfast, a bit more at lunch, most of it at dinner. That means your muscles get barely any building material in the morning, a modest amount in the middle of the day, and a big flood at night. Unfortunately, your muscles can only use so much protein from a single meal for building. The rest is used for other body needs or energy. So a huge protein dinner makes your stomach busy, but it doesn't fully compensate for the missed opportunities earlier. Several studies in older adults have suggested that meals containing around 25 to 40 grams of protein with enough leucine are the ones that really kick muscle protein synthesis, the building process, into gear. Below that, the response is weak. Many typical breakfasts in seniors barely reach 10 grams of protein, sometimes less. That means breakfast, for a huge number of people over 60, is a wasted moment for muscle. When researchers compared people who spread their protein more evenly across breakfast, lunch, and dinner with those who saved most of it for the evening, the ones with stronger breakfasts often had better muscle mass and function, especially in the limbs. There's even research where older adults were given extra protein at different times of the day. The surprising result was that adding protein at breakfast, not at lunch or dinner, had a particularly strong effect on maintaining or improving skeletal muscle mass. Morning seems to be a kind of sweet spot for many older bodies. After a night of fasting, your muscles are primed to respond if you actually give them something to respond to. So our simple habit is not random. It's timed to the biology of your muscle. What does this look like in a real kitchen, with real appetite and real time pressure? Let's make it concrete. Imagine 2 mornings in the life of the same person. On the first morning, they have black coffee, a slice of toast with jam, and maybe half a banana. Total protein, maybe 6 or 7 grams. Their stomach isn't very full, their blood sugar rises quickly and then dips mid-morning, and their muscles barely notice that breakfast happened. On the second morning, they still have their coffee, but they also eat 2 whole eggs and a generous side of Greek yogurt with some berries, or a tofu scramble with vegetables and a sprinkle of cheese, or a smoothie made with milk or soy milk and a scoop of quality protein powder. Now we're easily in the 25 to 30 plus gram range. Their blood sugar rises more gently, their hunger is better controlled, and their muscles receive a strong, clear message to repair. The difference in how you feel after those meals may not be dramatic on one day, but repeated hundreds of times, it changes the story of your legs. The high-protein breakfast helps preserve the muscle in your thighs and calves that you use to stand up, walk, and climb. It helps protect the motor that lets you live independently. It also helps control appetite throughout the day, so you're less likely to graze on sugary snacks that offer energy but no structural benefit. Many older adults who shift to protein-centered breakfasts report that they feel more stable, more powered, and less desperate for something sweet at 10 in the morning. Of course, not everyone wakes up hungry. Some people over 60 feel a bit queasy in the morning or simply not interested in food. If that's you, the habit can still work. It just needs to be adapted. You might not want to sit down to a big plate of eggs and beans. But you might tolerate a small, cold, smooth option like half a portion of Greek yogurt plus a soft-boiled egg, or a small glass of a high-protein drink you keep ready in the fridge, or a silken tofu smoothie with fruit. The rule we're following is the same. Whatever form breakfast takes, it must contain a decent chunk of protein, not just carbohydrates. Another common obstacle is time. Mornings can be busy, even in retirement. Appointments, grandchildren, routines, everything wants your attention. The good news is that your breakfast habit doesn't have to be fancy to be effective. You can boil half a dozen eggs at once and keep them in the fridge. You can buy Greek yogurt in larger tubs and serve yourself in seconds. You can prep overnight oats with extra milk and a scoop of protein powder the night before, so all you have to do in the morning is open the container. You can keep firm tofu or cottage cheese on hand for quick savory bowls. This is not about making an elaborate brunch. It's about systematically making sure your first meal has enough muscle-building power. It's also important to say that this habit is not just about animal products. If you eat mostly plant-based, you can still build a powerful breakfast. Soy products like tofu and tempeh are particularly useful because they're rich in high-quality protein and leucine. A tofu scramble with vegetables, a bowl of soy yogurt with nuts and seeds, or a smoothie with soy milk and a plant-based protein powder can all hit that 25 to 30 gram target. Beans can be part of breakfast too. Think of warm beans with whole grain toast and a side of avocado, or leftover lentils turned into a savory breakfast bowl. The key idea is the same. Choose protein as the central character of the meal, and let the bread, cereal, or fruit play supporting roles. So where do your legs come into this? Imagine what happens over months when every morning you deliver a strong protein signal to your body. Each breakfast, combined with any movement you do during the day, becomes a small vote in favor of keeping the fibers in your thighs and calves. When you walk, climb stairs, sit and stand, you are giving your legs their reason to exist. When you eat a protein-rich breakfast, you are giving them the materials to respond to that reason. Over time, this combination can mean that at 75, you still stand up from a chair in one smooth movement. You still walk at a confident pace, and you still feel safe carrying things up a few steps. To make this habit work even better, there is a simple add-on that doesn't require much time. Pair your protein breakfast with a tiny bit of leg-focused movement. It doesn't have to be a gym session. It could be something as small as doing 10 or 15 slow sit-to-stand motions from a sturdy chair after you eat, or walking up and down your hallway a few extra times, or doing a gentle set of heel raises at the kitchen counter. These little signals tell your leg muscles, you were just fed, now we're going to use you. Your body is very efficient. It tends to send nutrients where they are needed. If you feed and then move the same muscles, you're giving it very clear instructions. Let's bring this out of theory with a few short portraits of how this habit can play out in real lives. Picture James, 69, who retired a few years ago. His mornings are simple: 2 cups of coffee and a piece of toast with jam. Around 10 or 11, he feels drained and heads for a pastry or biscuits. Over the last decade, his legs have become noticeably weaker. He avoids stairs, and getting out of low chairs requires a little grunt. One day, his doctor mentions that his muscle mass, especially in his legs, is lower than it should be. Instead of giving him a complicated diet, the doctor suggests one change. Make breakfast his protein meal. James is skeptical, but agrees to try. He starts having 2 eggs and some Greek yogurt most mornings, keeping his toast but shrinking it to 1 slice. He also begins a tiny routine. After breakfast, he stands up and sits down from his chair 10 times, slowly. The first week feels odd. By the third week, he notices that he's no longer desperate for a sugary snack mid-morning. After a couple of months, he realizes he's using the stairway at his daughter's house without the same sense of dread. The change is not dramatic, like a television ad, but it is real. His legs feel more there for him. All he did was feed them properly at the start of the day and ask a bit more of them. Now think of Elena, 73, who has always eaten light in the morning because she believed it was better for her weight, a little fruit, tea, maybe a rice cracker. Lunch and dinner are where most of her protein sits. Lately, she has been complaining that her legs feel like cotton each afternoon. She stumbles more often on uneven ground, and she is starting to hold on to furniture when she stands up. A friend mentions the idea of a protein-centered breakfast, and at first Elena resists. "I can't eat heavy in the morning," she says. But then she realizes that heavy in her mind means greasy or large, not necessarily protein-rich. So she experiments. She replaces her rice cracker with a bowl of soy yogurt mixed with ground flaxseed and a handful of nuts, and she keeps her fruit. Suddenly her breakfast goes from a few grams of protein to more than 20. On days when she has more appetite, she adds half a boiled egg. After a couple of weeks, she notices that the afternoon cotton legs feeling is less intense. Her energy is more even. She's not starving by lunch, which makes it easier to choose balanced meals. Her weight doesn't go up. If anything, it stabilizes. For the first time in a long while, she feels like her breakfast is actually doing something for her body instead of just occupying her hands. Imagine, too, a couple in their late 60s, Sam and Rosa. Sam loves traditional breakfasts: white bread, butter, jam, orange juice. Rosa often skips breakfast entirely because she's busy. Both worry about getting weaker, but feel overwhelmed by complicated nutrition advice. They decide to treat breakfast as their shared experiment. Together, they sit down on a Sunday and ask, "What protein-rich foods do we actually like?" They find that they both enjoy eggs, cottage cheese, and oats. They choose 3 simple breakfasts they can rotate. One day, eggs with a side of cottage cheese and tomato. Another day, Greek yogurt with fruit and a spoon of peanut butter. Another, oats cooked in milk with added protein powder and nuts. They keep their beloved coffee, but the plate underneath changes. Over months, their mornings look different. They sit a bit longer at the table. They talk while eating real food, not just sipping coffee. Their blood sugar readings improve. Rosa notices that her legs don't shake as much when she gets up from the floor after playing with the grandchildren. Sam realizes that the hill near their house feels shorter. The habit becomes part of their identity as a couple. We're the ones who have our muscle breakfast every morning. It gives them a sense of control over their aging that no vitamin pill ever did. Finally, picture someone in their late 70s living alone and already labeled as frail. Their appetite is low, and they often skip breakfast entirely. They shuffle more than walk, and standing up is a slow, careful operation. A community nurse visits and notices that their first meal is often not until early afternoon. She explains gently that their legs are trying to maintain themselves with very little fuel, especially in the morning when the body is most ready to rebuild. Together, they design a tiny starting step. A small high-protein drink or a half cup of yogurt with a little honey, taken within an hour of waking, plus some simple seated leg extensions while watching the morning news. At first, the person treats this as a chore, but over weeks, it becomes a ritual. They sit in their chair, sip their little muscle breakfast, and move their legs back and forth. After a couple of months, the nurse notices that standing up from the chair has become a bit smoother. The person's walking distance inside the house is slightly longer. The frailty is still there, but it is no longer growing as fast. The breakfast habit hasn't turned them into an athlete, but it has given their body permission to keep what it still has. Whenever we talk about increasing protein, there is an important safety note. Not every body can handle big increases in protein without thought. If you have kidney disease, liver problems, or certain other conditions, your protein targets and sources might need to be different. That's why it's essential to discuss any major change with your healthcare provider, especially if you plan to use supplements or have been told to limit certain nutrients. For most relatively healthy older adults, though, current research suggests that the old guideline of 0.8 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day is often too low to protect muscle. Many experts now recommend somewhere around 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilo for healthy older adults, and sometimes more if illness or rehabilitation is involved. But remember, this isn't about stuffing yourself with protein at one meal. It's about spreading it sensibly across the day and making sure breakfast gets its fair share. The beauty of the breakfast habit is that it doesn't require counting every gram. You don't need a food scale or a spreadsheet. You need a simple rule you can remember when you're barely awake. Something like, every morning my first meal must have a real protein centerpiece: eggs, yogurt, tofu, cottage cheese, beans, or a good protein shake, big enough that I know my muscles noticed it. If you repeat that daily, you'll naturally start moving toward that 25 to 30 gram range. Over time, you'll get a sense of what a muscle-respecting breakfast looks and feels like. If I had to compress everything we've talked about into one sentence, it would be this. After 60, one of the simplest ways to preserve the strength of your legs is to stop starving them in the morning and start giving them a solid, protein-rich breakfast that tells them clearly, every day, you are still needed here. You can't control every aspect of aging. None of us can. But you can absolutely control what you put on your plate tomorrow morning. You can turn breakfast from an empty ritual into a daily investment in your ability to stand up, walk, climb, travel, visit, dance a little, and live in a body that still feels like yours. That simple habit, choosing a muscle-building breakfast, will not fix everything overnight. But day after day, it quietly protects the legs that carry your life. As you finish this video, I invite you to decide on one concrete action. Maybe you'll buy eggs, or Greek yogurt, or tofu on your next shopping trip. Maybe you'll prep a batch of boiled eggs so they're ready. Maybe you'll talk to your doctor or dietitian about how much protein is right for you. Or maybe you'll simply look at your usual breakfast and ask, where is the muscle in this meal? Then you'll add it. And if you know another senior who is worried about getting weaker, share this idea with them. Sometimes the difference between declining legs and determined legs is not a complicated plan. It's a simple breakfast, repeated with intention. If you want to keep learning natural, science-backed ways to protect your muscles, your circulation, your energy, and your independence in this stage of life, you can stay close to this community. Aging is not just about counting years. It is about learning which small, daily habits give your body reasons to stay strong. Your breakfast can be one of them, starting tomorrow.